Welcome to Elite Rugby SandC podcast, the best podcast talking all things rugby and strength and conditioning. At Elite Rugby SandC, we provide athletes with strength and conditioning programs that provides you with everything you need to become a beast and take your game to the next level. No matter what stage of the year or season, Elite Rugby SandC has a program for you. You can try before you buy, so try our 7-day $7 trial to get a taste of what we offer here at Elite Rugby SandC. So take your game to the next level, become a beast, and join Elite Rugby SandC today. G'day, Ben. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, going really well today. Thanks. I'm glad the sun is out here in Canberra. It is a bit chilly this morning, but it's nice to see some good sunshine that we've been having the last few days.
Yeah, it's been some nice days actually. Mother's Day was a cracker, so it was good for my partner and my little one.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, how are you adjusting to not playing rugby this year after retiring last year?
Yeah, I think I've been okay. I definitely don't, particularly with the colder nights at the moment. I don't miss training on a Tuesday or Thursday. I do miss playing on a Saturday. Obviously, it's been a big part of my life for a long time. So, not sort of suiting up with the boys each weekend is a little bit difficult. But I popped down to a couple of games and watched, and it's still good to sort of be around the club. But I think so far sort of adjusted okay. Hasn't been sort of too many weeks where I've sort of just dreadfully missed being out there.
Yeah, it's a strange feeling because you don't miss the cold nights, you don't miss those hard hits, and you probably quite enjoy waking up on a Sunday feeling, not sore or anything like that. And if you are sore, it's probably self-inflicted. But yeah, you don't miss those things.
No, not at all, and that makes it a little bit easier to play golf on a Sunday if I want to. So,
100%. Do you think you'll ever get back into rugby in terms of like coaching or anything like that?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing some coaching down the track. Probably more in the 7 space. I just feel a bit more comfortable with that, and I feel like I know that space a little bit better than 15s. But it's not to say I wouldn't coach 15s at all. It's definitely sort of on my radar for down the track. But yeah, I think I'll just had a little one, so I'll probably spend a bit of time with her and just having a little bit of time away from rugby. But yeah, down the track, I'll definitely be interested in getting into some sort of coaching.
That's awesome. Is she going to be a future rugby star as well?
I mean, if that's what she wants to do, yeah, she's more than welcome, and I'll help her as much as I can. But we'll see how she goes when she gets a bit bigger.
Yeah, 100%. So, growing up as a young lad, what sports did you play, and how did you end up playing rugby?
Yeah, so growing up, I pretty much played any sport that I could, particularly at school. Not that I didn't like school, but I was probably more of a social side of things there. But I played a lot of cricket and rugby. I started in rugby league when I was a little bit younger, and then Dad sort of said, "You've got to pick one or the other. You can't play both." So a lot of my friends from school playing rugby, so I ended up sort of sticking to rugby. But cricket was probably my big sport all the way through school. That's what I was going to do. I was going to play cricket after I'd finished school, and then I think in about year 10 I had a few issues, just sort of up until year 10 I had broken a lot of bones just playing rugby. So I think I'd broken about 14 or 15 by the time I was 15. Sort of had seen some bone specialists, and they sort of said pick a new sport because rugby is probably not for you. Your body's probably not going to cope with that. So I went and played baseball for a season, and to be honest, I just missed playing rugby so much. Like I went and watched my mates play one Friday night in the juniors, and I just on the way home said to Dad, I was like, I know they said I can't play, but I don't care. Like I just want to play with my mates. Like it was just such a big thing being part of that team, and going to school the next week and talking about what happened at footy and that sort of thing. So luckily enough, sort of after I got back and started playing again, a few things changed for me, and my body sort of started to cope a little bit better, which was pleasing. But yeah, cricket was always my big thing. And then end of year 12, I got a call from Bill Swain at the Brumbies to come down and trial with them. And I actually thought it was a joke at first. I thought someone was pranking me. So I was like, no. Sure. And I sort of kept talking, and anyway, ended up coming down to Canberra for a trial at the AIS for a couple of days to get into the Brumbies Academy, and was fortunate enough to, I guess, have gone quite well. There was a lot of testing and that sort of stuff on the first day, which was fine for me because it was all running and fitness stuff, which I was super fit. So that worked well. And then I just had a couple of lucky touches the next day when we were playing games. So got picked up for that. And then, yeah, just sort of changed my whole trajectory of going to play cricket. And all of a sudden I was going to play rugby. So, yeah, that's sort of how I ended up in Canberra and playing rugby.
No, it's awesome. It's something that resonates with me as well as having to pick rugby league or rugby union. You know, it got to a point where like you can't really play both, and trainings are becoming a bit hard, and playing on a Saturday then Sunday, even though you're a little like, you know, when I was doing it was like 13, 12, you know, like it was just a bit too much. So yeah, you just had to make that decision, and I'm glad you picked rugby. It's my preferred sport as well, but I'm sure if you went down the rugby league path, you would have had some good success as well.
Yeah, possibly.
Mm. But that's interesting. You played baseball as well, because I'm a big baseball person as well, and played for like 5 6 years when I was a junior, and I thought it really helped myself be able to track and read the plays, and also helped with my throwing and lineouts and all that. Do you think cricket had the same effect as well, being able to be a better rugby athlete, hence from playing cricket?
Um, uh, Probably maybe parts of it. I mean, I was a bowler mostly, so it's kind of I mean, there's I guess a bit of power and stuff in terms of going through bowling continuously in an afternoon, but I'm not sure. I think it was more just for me. It was more just around that competitiveness and being in that competition with someone constantly, which is probably, I think, one of my assets, I guess, as a rugby player, is that I don't mind being in that contest, and I don't mind when it gets a bit tough, sort of thing. So, in that respect, yeah, I guess in terms of actually playing cricket and the skills that I have from there, maybe not as much, but yeah.
But yeah, that mindset aspect, because in cricket it's you versus the batter, you know, and
Yeah,
it's a hard thing. You can bowl one beautiful ball and you're like, yes, I got him. And then he smacks you around the park. You're like, oh, shit, what's going on here? So I guess you took that sort of mental area of it from cricket and then applied it to rugby.
yeah. I definitely think there's a lot of, in terms of that mental capacity to stay in contests and things. A lot of that sort of switches over from a lot of sports, I guess, as well. There's times where you can sort of, and particularly rugby, you have those momentum swings as well. So you just sometimes you got to ride those little hard patches and just wait for that opportunity, and then I guess be ready to take it when it comes.
Yeah, 100%. So what a career you did have playing, you know, 18 years of rugby for the Canberra Royals, if I'm not correct, is incredible. You know, looking back on your career, what did you enjoy the most about it?
Oh, I mean, 18 years is a long time to sort of pick one thing that I sort of enjoy the most. But I mean, there's so many things within a rugby club and rugby as a sport that were awesome to enjoy. I mean, like, you've got those preseason trips away with your team where you're sort of bonding and going to a new place where you might stay overnight and have a few beers, and that's how you sort of bond and get to know some of the boys, I guess, on a deeper level than just at rugby. You have your obviously presentations and things like that, winning premierships. But I think for me, there's probably a couple of things. I went to Mauritius to play in the tens with the Brumbies. I think it was 2017. Your cousin was on that trip as well. Actually, he was at S&C there. That for me, that was a pretty big highlight, I guess. To be able to lead that team over there and play against guys like Roscoe Speckman, some of the best sevens players in the world. To mark up on him was something pretty special for myself. But I guess one of the things I guess I enjoyed most was just the people around the club and that community. I moved to Canberra 19 years ago or so now, and I didn't know a single person in Canberra. So for me, it was the relationships that I built throughout my club, and the rugby community. It's not just at Royals; it's all the other clubs as well. And through that Brumbies organisation when I was there in the academy, and I've made some lifelong friends along the way, which is amazing. But also, like, rugby creates so many opportunities for people. Like, I've travelled to a fair few different places overseas playing sevens, and without rugby, I wouldn't have had those opportunities to see different places over the world. Like going to Mauritius, I never would have gone to Mauritius if it wasn't for rugby. Dubai, Bangkok, like there's been a number of different places that I've gone on, just little different rugby tours, which rugby, I guess, opened up those doors or opened those opportunities for me to be able to go and do that, see different parts of the world, and meet different people from different cultures, which for me is one of the, I guess, the richest things in the game. Like you meet all these different people who have a love of the one sport, but are from vastly different places, vastly different upbringings, and for me, that's the sort of stuff that I really enjoy about rugby and being part of those teams. That everyone is so different in terms of their backgrounds, but also in terms of like sizes and shapes and stuff. Like rugby it just accommodates so many different people from different areas. So that's probably one of the special things for me.
Yeah, I think people do forget that it's a world game and it can take you all over the world to meet many different people. And it is an interesting point you said there. Like you have 15 players out there on the pitch and you all come from different backgrounds and different stories and different cultures. And it's really cool when you do gel with each other and bond, and then you go out there and play the game that brought you together and really have fun, no matter if you're winning or losing. It's a bit more fun when you're winning, but it's just interesting, the people that come out and the friends that you make along the way. So that's another reason why I think this game is so special.
Yeah, 100%.
So what makes a good rugby club? Why did Royals keep you for so long, and what also made the Brumbies sort of special as well in your experience?
I might start with the Royals, I guess. I actually landed at Royals just by chance. When I moved down here, I needed a job, so I went just in the paper at that stage. It wasn't so much online looking for work and stuff. So I was just in the paper looking through the classifieds, and there was an advert for I was a cabinet maker. So I went out and met with the bloke around asking for a job to do an apprenticeship, and I told him why I was down here with the Brumbies Academy and that sort of stuff. So he was okay with all of that, and he sort of said, "Oh, who are you playing for?" And at that stage, there was sort of between a few clubs. I hadn't sort of picked a club, and I said Royals was one of them. And he said, "Oh, if you play for Royals, I'll give you the job." And I was like, "Damn, that was pretty easy." Didn't know anyone from Royals at that stage. And the first couple of years at Royals was pretty tough in terms of results. But there's blokes who I played with in my first year who, they're my best mates, and they've been in my life since then. So I couldn't be sort of happier there. But what makes that club, it is the people that make that club. And I'm very thankful that they've held on to me and let me sort of stay around for that amount of time there, because I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I guess it's made Canberra home for me. And the people at that club sort of have become my family down here. Like I said, I didn't know anyone when I moved here, so for me to sort of come into that club and them to embrace me and sort of look after me along the way, I'll be forever thankful to them. And I think Brumbies they're quite similar. I mean, you obviously look at guys that have come from, even our top squad, like a lot of guys that have come not necessarily from Canberra. There's people that have come from everywhere, and they all sort of seem to say the same thing. Like it's a really nice place to be, and it's just a real family feel about it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons. You look at the Super Rugby and why they're going so well. They seem to be a really tight knit group, and they get along really well, but they also look after each other. And I think that's a big thing in rugby. If your club's going well, everyone's sort of looking after each other and looking out for one another as well, I guess. For me, that's one of the important things. You can play rugby and be absolute world beaters, but if you're not looking after one another, like it takes some of that enjoyment away when you are winning, because you want to share it with people who you respect and you trust, and who have gone through and done all the work with you in the trainings and pre-season and all that beforehand.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the main reasons people might leave one club to go to another, obviously it's opportunity and some other reasons, but it's more like I didn't really feel like I fitted in the club, or the club didn't really do much for me, or you didn't feel valued. So I think if you can really hone those areas of your club, it's going to make players stay there for a long time, and also try and recruit some players to come along, because you might be very similar to another club in terms of talent and all that, but if you got a club that really cares about their players, you're going to retain that talent and that person, and really allow those people to be the best that they can be out on the field and off the field as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really important. Like the off-field stuff is as important, maybe even more important than the on-field stuff. I think if everyone's sort of off the field is really happy, and you'll sort of see it from club to club, and it ebbs and flows as well. Like you go through patches where sometimes you look and you go, that whole group, that whole club is really tight knit, because you'll see them, not so much now, but when I did used to go out, you would see all the people would be together from that club. And it didn't matter if you were first grade to fourth grade, fifth grade women's, like there'd always be someone from those teams in there. And for me, that's a really good indicator of how a club's going. When you sort of start to see that, when you sort of see in the first grade sort of segregates themselves a little bit, they might have a really good first grade team, but in terms of that club feel, like that's, for me, that's not really what I'm about. I like to sort of see the whole club there, and everyone sort of enjoying everyone's victories, or everyone coming together when you've had a loss, sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%. It's not just all about first grade. I know first grade does get the sponsors and, the revenue and all that, but you got to take care of everyone and make sure everyone's, feeling valued, and you're watching that person's game. If it's a third grade game and you're a first grader, come down, show some support, give some tips there. But yeah, it's definitely a thing when you're all together and supporting each other. You're all going to go and take that step forward, instead of going back and being sort of segregated, as you said. Now we're
Yeah,
first grade, we don't watch that. It's like, no, come on,
yeah,
you're the leaders of our club. You got to lead.
yeah, and that's exactly right. I think leadership is super important from those top guys, or top guys and girls in the clubs now, in terms of what's coming through, in terms of your future for the club. So for me, like I always think about, our colts and that are coming through, like they're the future leaders of your club. So they're the ones that you really need to instill. We're a whole club. It's a whole club mentality. It's not about you get to first grade and then you're above everyone. It's you bring everyone up with you. And the more people that you can get doing that, I feel like the more cohesive your club is. But yeah, just the happier everyone is, and on and off the field is super important.
Yeah, 100% agree. So how did you have such a long career? Is there, some secret juice you've been taking or something like that? What are the keys to, having a long career in rugby?
Oh, I think I'm stubborn. That's probably a big one. I would say I just really enjoy being part of a team, to, I guess, working together to achieve those goals. And it's probably not something that, when in my earlier days, that I was so focused on, but definitely probably the back end of my career, the back end of my time playing, particularly at Royals, I really wanted to, I guess, work with the people in my team and have that shared goal and shared understanding of what we wanted to achieve together. And that really helped me. I know probably around 2014, I'd sort of lost a bit of interest in playing rugby, to the point where I was like, I think I'm done. And then I actually had just a pre-season that I didn't train, and I wasn't going to play again. And then we had a new coach come in, and I don't know if it was just the time off that I had, where I had 6 months where I just didn't worry about, I've got to go to training, I've got to do this, I've got to make sure my body's in this condition. I had time off. I didn't eat well. I was probably drinking, going out and sort of having fun, which is fine. I have no problem doing that. But I think that time away just sort of freshened me up a little bit, if that makes sense. I did put on a bit of weight, which was not a bad thing for me, because I was quite skinny at best of times anyway. But I think, yeah, that was probably midway. It was about 2014, I think. So it's probably midway, halfway sort of through my time at Royals, 8 or 9 years in, I think. And then after that, I reckon the back end of my career, I probably played a lot better. rugby, and I think it may have had something to do with being a bit more relaxed. And I think early on in my career, I I was really hard on myself, and I thought, oh, I'm in the Brumbies Academy, I have to do everything perfect. So I was so hard on myself with everything, and I think when I came back after that little break, I sort of relaxed a little bit and just enjoyed doing what I love doing, which was playing rugby. Originally I started playing rugby just because I love playing with my mates, and I probably got back to that a little bit while still being super competitive. I didn't sort of wouldn't let my weekends be ruined if I had a loss or if I had a poor performance. And I think that allowed me to enjoy my rugby a lot more, which probably helped me to play better rugby, to be honest.
Yeah, you got to have those outlets, because if it's just rugby 24/7, you can get in your own head, and yeah, you just become too obsessed with it, and you don't have those times where you can just enjoy life, enjoy yourself, and be around friends or family, or just trying something different. Playing golf, for example, or something
Yeah,
completely different to rugby. So, I think the best players that we see these days in club rugby, but also in Super Rugby, are able to switch off and enjoy things outside of it. But when it does come down to working, they work hard, but they also have times where they just can be lazy couch potatoes, or just go out and enjoy something else.
yeah, definitely. It's definitely good to have other avenues of things to focus on.
100%. So, how important is it to manage your body and mind, to play week in and week out in club rugby? What did you do to be able to do this and to be able to play, week in, week out?
Yeah, I think again early on I was in that academy setup, so we were in the gym a lot, and it's no secret I hated the gym. When I moved here, I was probably, I don't know, 67 kilos, wringing wet. So we got into the gym, and there's boys in there lifting 100 kilos on the bench, and I reckon I was struggling to lift 50. So it took me a good couple of years to get into a bit of, I guess, a rhythm to actually enjoy. Okay, I'm doing this, and I feel a bit better playing. But I think, particularly the back end of my career, I really valued recovery, which I didn't maybe do so much earlier on, which, you know, positive or negative. But I think, like, probably the last few years, there's a lot of gym and making sure that I was doing my stretching or rolling out on a Saturday morning, whereas probably earlier on I wasn't doing none of that. It was just, yep, I'm going to rugby, I'll do warm up, and then I'm sort of on the field. There's not really any recovery. Probably going out having drinks and whatnot. But yeah, the back end, I definitely recovery. Like even Sunday morning, sort of doing a little pool session or a sauna, or even into Monday as well. Sometimes when the body was after we've had a pretty big weekend, or if we've sort of been battered a little bit. So I definitely took some value in those, I guess, a bit more downtime with the recovery side of things rather than just the weights. But I do know that when I played some of my best rugby, or when my body felt the best, was when I was in the gym consistently, and not necessarily lifting huge weights, but I was keeping everything sort of, I guess, strong. Just making sure everything was maintained and the body felt in good nick. So, and that's, I guess, when I feel like my speed was sort of at its best, and my upper body, limbs, and all that sort of stuff felt strong enough, and I guess I was more confident in contact, which obviously is a huge part of rugby. Part of it that I probably didn't enjoy for the first fair few years of my career, but the back end of my career, I definitely started to. I wouldn't say I enjoyed contact, but I was definitely happy to put my hand up and get in there and take a few hard carries or put my body in the line a bit more.
Yeah, 100%. And just with the recovery, it's one of those things you probably can get away with when you're younger. You're like, oh yeah, I'm good. I always have a good sleep, and I'm fine to go by Monday. But when you start to, get a bit older, or those hits start to hurt a bit more, then you realize, okay, I actually need to recover so I can then train again next week. So I think with recovery, to start out small. If it's something as easy as foam rolling, if you don't want to buy a foam roller, go find a PVC pipe and start using that, or a tennis ball, or a cricket ball, or something that you got, and see how that makes a difference. If it doesn't work, sweet, chuck it to the side, try something else. But just having something is better than nothing in the recovery game. And you also got to remember it's not just about you; it's about the team as well. You're recovering for the team to then be able to play next week for the team as well. So we
Yeah.
all have been there. You're like, nah, screw recovery. I'm not going to do it. But then when you start doing, you're like, oh yeah, I probably should have done this a while ago.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I mean, if you can get a few of the boys to come with you as well, you can go and get a coffee or whatever afterwards. It usually makes it a bit better. But I know Pedro was from Royals. He was a big one who sort of started getting us ticking off. He gave us certain points for doing different things on a Sunday just to get people moving again, which is good. And even if it is just a short walk, just to get a bit of mobility, just to get you moving, so that that's that little bit more you've done before comes time to
Mm.
train again on Tuesday.
Yeah, 100%. How proud were you of Pedro making his debut for the Brumbies a few weeks ago?
Mate, so proud. Mate, it's no secret. He's been one of the best players in the comp for a long time, and for him to get his opportunity and against the Crusaders, I know that's something that he's been working towards for a long time, and he thoroughly deserves. So yeah, I couldn't have been prouder for him. It's an amazing achievement for him.
Yeah, he's been a sort of a cult hero down here in Canberra for a very long time. And even if you weren't on the Royal side, you were playing against him, you would be, furious with him how sneaky he was around the ruck and how golden that boot is when kicking you as well. But it's just a great story to see, someone who's just put the work in for so long and then to be rewarded with a Brumbies cap was it's just awesome.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, he's the sort of guy who he's always ready to go. So I have no doubt when he got the call to come in and as injury cover to train with the Brumbies, he wouldn't have been far off being where most of those guys were, just because he does work so hard and train so hard by himself.
100%. So when you did start to enjoy strength and conditioning, if you did start to enjoy it, how did you felt it helped you out in the rugby game? And what did you like? And how did you find the balance between, finding enough training during the week and not overdoing it for yourself as well, which is a, sort of a struggle for some people?
Yeah, so I think the first time I probably started to enjoy, particularly the gym, was when I moved to New Zealand in 2012. And when I moved over there, I was training with this, like in the Stags system, not training with them. I was just doing weights with them during the day, and that was the first time where I wasn't having to work and then find time to go to the gym and that sort of thing. So I was able to look after my body in terms of any protein or eating the right foods and doing the proper recovery, because that was my sole focus. And I think I put on about 4 kilos or something when I went over there. This is sort of during season, which for me was a really hard thing to do, putting weight on. So I have always struggled to put weight on, and whether that was because I was always active or just my body type, I found it really hard to put. I just could never eat enough or could never sit still enough to put weight on. So when I was over there and all I was doing was rugby, I put it, like I said, I put on about 4 kilos, and I think I saw the changes in my gym as well. Like I was like, oh, I'm getting stronger. Like I'm lifting more weights now, which I've never been able to lift this much. And then how that translated into the game was when I was over there, where I played in New Zealand, just down in Invercargill. It was a pretty tight game. There wasn't much ball movement. So if I wanted to get the ball, I pretty much had to run off 10 and 12. So luckily, obviously, I'd put on a little bit of weight, and it just gave me a bit more confidence in contact, which I probably didn't have before, and maybe would have made me shy away from sort of trucking it off a 10 or a 12. But and then that sort of, I guess, came into my defense as well. I was happy enough to get my body in front of people and start to actually, I guess, put a little bit of weight behind any of those collisions. So I found that sort of 6-month period particularly really helpful in terms of my game, because it allowed me to then, I guess, my game was sort of focused more before that on my speed and getting around people and not so much into contact. Whereas now I still had my speed, but I was able to then take a few hits and I guess take some of those tough carries and through the middle rather than just on the edge, which for me was unreal. And I think that kind of, again, sort of coincided with that little break that I had as well. And I was then able to I guess, get a little bit of love for rugby back and a different side of things rather than just sort of being bashed all the time because I was tiny.
Yeah. It's awesome what strength conditioning training can do for rugby athletes if done correctly, and you still have all your attributes that you said you had, and then you're able to unlock some new, you know, things, powers, or just
Yeah,
skills that not you like that you didn't have before. So it's just really cool that you've seen that and experienced it. And I think other great examples is probably if you're watching the Brumbies right now, Corey Toole and Andy Muirhead. They're not the biggest players out on the field, but they can take contact and they're still elusive and still quick as hell. So strength conditioning is only going to help enhance your rugby performance if done correctly. Just don't overdo it. And if you are sort of scared about doing it, find someone who's going to help you do it in the correct way, because it's going to add years onto your rugby career and you're probably going to enjoy it a lot more as well.
yeah, definitely helps.
So from 2015 to 2020, you and the team had some very successful years, winning 4 premierships. What went right those seasons in order to win those premierships?
Probably a number of things went right. I think we had a really good coach, Wayne Southwell. He did a really good job in terms of just the way he managed our group of players. I wouldn't have said we were necessarily on paper, like some of the teams that we beat in those grand finals were on paper much better teams. But I think as a team, we were really cohesive and played for each other. And I know I spoke a lot about, maybe not so much in 2015, but I think I started captaining in 2016. And my big focus was just around being good people on and off the field. I'd been on the end of a few hidings early on in my career at Royals. And when we started to sort of get a bit of success and start going really well, and I think probably 2017 in particular, when I think we went through undefeated, for me, that was a really proud moment for me, because we had the opportunity where we were dusting a lot of teams, and we had on paper a fantastic team. Everyone knew their role. Everyone had great skills. But come training on a Tuesday, everyone was ready to rip in. There was no complacency. And for me, I think that was probably my second year captaining. I think that was a really proud moment for me, because I was like, I feel like there was a spot there where we could have just been complacent and just sort of gone through the motions, but we never let that happen. I'm not saying that was just me, but that was sort of a big focus for me, because I knew we had a great team and I knew we could perform on weekends, but it was about getting all those little steps before the weekend right, so that we were prepared and ready to go. But I think Sally has a knack for getting the best out of his players, whether they were the best players on the field or not. He had a knack for just getting something extra out of them. And I know I owe him a lot. He helped me in a number of different ways, on and off the field. I'll be forever grateful for that as well. And I have a really good friendship with Sally now, where I still speak to him, even though he's up in Queensland now. I speak to him regularly around what's going on in life and rugby. But I think in terms of what was going on, we had a really good group of players, a really good core group. And I think we just had standards that this is our standard, and anything under that is sort of unacceptable. And obviously at times, which is going to happen, it will drop. But it was about not just one person sort of going, we need to pick it up. It was, there was 5 or 6 people going, well, boys, that's not quite good enough. Like, that's not what we expect from our team. So I think we kept each other honest, and kept each other grounded, which I think is a really important part of club rugby, because there's potential that, you can get carried away after a couple of wins and people carry on a little bit. So for me, it was, I guess, Sally getting the best out of everyone. But our senior group, I think, really keeping everyone grounded and keeping everyone accountable was one of probably the big reasons why over that period we had such success.
Yeah, you can't get too far ahead of yourself when you are winning games, and you can't forget about the work that you've been putting in and you need to continue to put in. It's very frustrating as a coach looking at your team and they've had one win or a couple of wins against, better sides than they were previously, and they start getting complacent and not switching on when training happens and take things a bit easy and say, why do we need to do that? We're winning. We're good. Like it's great to learn that you and the team, we're pushing each training to be better and making sure that you're keeping the standards. That's probably the hardest thing I would say throughout a preseason and in season is keeping the standards when things are going well and when things aren't going so well as well. And if you can keep those standards, then the results will come at the end of the day. When you start to drop the standards, you probably look back on that season like, why didn't we go so well? Oh, we didn't really set out to do the things that we planned to do at the start of the season, did we?
Yeah. I think it's easy to take shortcuts when things start getting a bit difficult, but I think the more, and I mean, it comes with time and experience as well, but the more people you can have on that same page, particularly at the top of your club, if you can have them saying, we're not going to take shortcuts, or it might be tough, but we're going to go there, do that extra rep or whatever it is. Come game day, that's when it makes, or the last 5 minutes of a game, that's when it makes the big difference.
And it did make the big difference in that 2015 grand final as well. I remember that day because we lost against Colts Royals on the Hooter, and then first grade lost, I think, on the Hooter or just after the Hooter as well. It was 0-5 day. I still remember that.
It was a good day for our club, that one.
Hi, everyone. We just want to take a quick break from this episode. We hope you're enjoying this episode so far and all the content we have produced. We appreciate all the support from our listeners and followers so far. If you haven't already, sign up to Elite Rugby SandC blog today. We provide free exclusive content every single week to our subscribers. You'll find our website link in our bio below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share Elite Rugby SandC on all social media platforms to all your family and friends. Thanks again for all your support, and now back to the episode. So, being a winger and fullback for a long time, what are the key attributes needed to be successful as an outside back?
There's a lot. I mean, you obviously need to be pretty fit, and I guess the work rate. You look at guys like Andy Muirhead, his work rate off the ball. It's not so much when the ball's there, and everyone knows what to do when the ball comes and what they're doing, but it's when the ball's on the other side of the field and your work rate around where you need to be. So I think, you look at guys like Andy, like he's always popping up on the other side of the field, inside balls off the 13 or outside the 13 and that sort of thing. So as a winger, that's probably one of the things is the work rate. And I know that whether it's from club rugby to super rugby or Wallabies, like they always talk about the work rate and you need more involvement, so you need more touches, you need to be working off the ball. So that's probably one of the big ones there. For me as a fullback, it was communication. I felt like it was kind of my job to organise our defence along with the halfback, because you can sort of, I guess you have the best view of the field there, so you can see where their numbers are, where the holes are and the gaps and that sort of thing. So communication was probably a big key for me then, playing fullback. And Andy Clark was probably a big reason why I was speaking so much on the field in those days, because I remember being at academy and playing on the wing, and I just was quiet. I'd never talked, and we'd have to go and do rep after rep. And he was like, "BJ, did you call for the ball then?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Do it again." And I was like, "Sorry, boys." So I quickly learnt that I had to always be talking and always calling for the ball, whether they knew I was there or not. I was always talking. So I think communication is probably a big one, and kicking obviously helps, and a bit of speed and stuff when you're on the edges. So I was lucky enough to have a decent enough boot and be quite quick, which probably helped me get out of a few sticky situations at different times.
I think you're underselling yourself on that boot. It's quite a big boot that you were able to kick the ball with.
I feel fortunate that I have long levers, I think. It's been a good asset for me to have over the years. And I remember talking to my granddad when I was a lot younger, and he sort of said in terms of making teams, he goes, you need to find something that sort of sets you apart from another fullback or another winger or whatever position you play. And for me, early on, it was my goal kicking and my kicking for touch and stuff. So I was very fortunate. I probably maybe skipped a few people because of those reasons. So yeah, it was good advice for me when I was growing up to sort of work on those other skills that were sort of, I guess, a bit more individual than so much the team stuff.
Yeah, I love that, separating yourself from the rest of the competition, but also being able to put you in a really good position to get picked for the team. Because if we're looking at, Clubland or even, Super Rugby or even to the World Cup for the Wallabies, Eddie Jones is going to be looking at, okay, who are my kickers? Because if I select Carter Gordon, yeah, he can kick the ball, but can he really goal kick? And who's going to be my goal kicker? Shit, I've only maybe got Nick White at 9, but who's going to be on the bench? Is it a Reece Hodge who can do all things, And
Yeah,
you want to have or give the head coach some positive headaches. And if you're the winger who can kick for touch really well and has a goal kicking boot as well, then that's a positive headache. He has to sort of select you if everything else is going your way as well. So having those attributes is definitely something that you want to have. And for me personally, it was being able to throw the ball on the line out. I was a prop most of my time playing rugby, but I could also throw the ball. And when time came, we needed a hooker, and I was the person there, and that's how I got sort of selected and be able to have a couple starting games at hooker as well. So definitely work on those skills that you might not think you have, and see if you got them.
yeah, 100%. I mean, you never know when you might not, like, I know there was seasons I didn't goal kick at all, but I still practiced that training. So just to be able to, I guess, keep that muscle memory there and know that if you are needed, you can be called upon. I think
100%.
it's super important.
I love that point. So outside of, life, work, and when you were playing rugby, what did you like to get up to in your spare time?
Uh, honestly, it was for a long time. It was just sort of rugby and cricket. When I was younger, if I wasn't playing sport when we were growing up, it was helping dad on the farm. So we sort of have a cattle farm up north, and I hated it at the time. Hated getting up on a Saturday. I hated being late for sport, and we would always be like right on time. So I'd rock up, get out of the car, and be literally on the field to bowl, or like the boys would already be starting warming up. But looking back now, like I love going home now, and I love just getting out on the farm and helping dad with the cattle and fixing fences, that sort of thing. But I was also very fortunate that my parents, we never sort of missed any sport either. So I was very fortunate, and I feel very privileged. Not necessarily the sacrifice they made, but they worked. Their work ethic is second to none. Like for as long as I can remember, mum had her own salon and worked 5.5 days, and then dad would have his job plus running the farm, along with my two brothers who would be obviously out helping as well. But I didn't do a lot of other stuff outside of that. I was pretty focused on my sport growing up. Like I said, I was really keen on cricket. So if any sort of spare time I had, I was in the backyard with my brothers kicking a footy or playing cricket or doing stuff on the farm. But I think sort of once I moved to Canberra and didn't have that, I was sort of just, I guess, getting to know Canberra and my new mates who were down here. Didn't do too much outside. I was probably a bit boring, to be fair. If I wasn't working or training, I was like, I just want to have a rest. I just want to sit down. So I didn't do a lot. Probably for the last few years more so, just sort of getting down the coast or things like that. I do miss the beach from where I grew up. Grew up on a farm, but it was 10 minutes from the beach. So I did a lot of training on the beach just in terms of running and things. So once I moved here, it's obviously a lot cooler in the winter, but it's also an hour and a bit to the beach, which is just makes it more of an effort to get there. I probably didn't realize the luxury I had up there, just sort of being 10 minutes away from the beach, but living on a farm. So I try to get to the coast if I can and just sort of hang out with friends and family.
That's awesome. So what makes a good teammate on and off the field in rugby?
On the field, I guess it's just someone who is going to do their job. And that probably comes from a bit of the off-field stuff or at training when you're training and everyone's putting in and everyone's doing all the stuff that you've done that the coaches have put you through. I think when you start having guys who have sore hammy every time you do fitness,
very, very convenient timing as well.
need to sit down and have a stretch, or I've got a bad back from the weekend, but I'll be fine for next weekend's game. That sort of stuff probably irritates me a little bit, but I think I'm I'm a bit old school as well in that respect. I feel like I was sort of between generations of that really ruthless older style player that, you know, get in and get it done, to now where it's a bit more, you got to look after yourself, you got to do this, you got to do that. So I feel like I'm a bit of both. But I think those teammates that are on the field, those ones that sort of stay calm, and I think they hold you accountable. I know we had a guy play for us for a long time, Craig McMahon, who I played with for a long time, and he was really good at, I guess, being really direct with what he was saying, but making sure everyone knew we all had a role to play and we could get it done. I was also played with people as well who just tear shreds off people, and I sort of see some style of players like that these days, and it doesn't work so much anymore being that ruthless. I think times have changed, and the resilience of people is probably not where it used to be. And it's no disrespect to anyone. I just feel like there's been a bit of a change, and you used to be able to probably, I know particularly when I was coming through the ranks as a junior, and I played a few senior games, you know, I'd cop a spray for doing something wrong, and I'd be like, yep, no worries, sorry, I'll fix it, I'll get onto it. Whereas I don't feel like you can do that so much anymore, because you lose those players for the rest of the game. And it's not all players, like I know it varies, but I think that resilience is probably a big, if you can build that resilience within your team, that's what's going to make your team or your teammates a lot better. Off the field, I think it's just ones who are looking out for one another. So I did a lot of stuff around are you okay, and making sure everyone's mental well-being and that sort of thing is everyone's traveling okay. So I think it's just making an environment where everyone feels safe, particularly around mental health side of things, with making sure people are comfortable if they're not traveling well, they're happy enough, or they're okay to speak to someone about it, rather than just sort of carry that and get to a space where it's all too much, and then you sort of lose them. Because I mean, you lose them from footy, and lose them from the club, and you lose them from I guess your social lives and things like that. So for me, it's the good teammates on and off the field are the ones who are looking out for one another. And it's not so much like you could be the best player in the world, but you still need those other 14 blokes on the field every time you go on there to show that. So without them, what are you? So for me, it's about building those other players up, making sure that they're all in a good headspace where they can perform to the best of their ability. And that's, yeah. So for me, it's the ones who look after each other, and I guess take that extra step to make sure someone's okay, whether it just be checking in with someone once a week or grabbing a coffee with them on a Sunday. You know, we all have bad games and stuff, so it's making sure we check in after the game and go, you know what, it's all right, we'll get them next week, or we'll bounce back next week. So for me, they're the people that I want on my team when I'm playing. It's the ones that are going to look out for each other, not throw them under the bus.
No, 100% agree. And for clubs that might not have this sort of support network put in place, what can they do to, you know, put in place these areas of, you know, if you're not doing okay, you can check in with this person or that person, or bring more awareness to the playing group as well?
Yeah, so there's so many different programs and things out there these days. I know and for me, as an ambassador for Are You Okay, that's obviously the one that comes to mind for me. But there's plenty of resources that you can go through, which all are focused at sporting clubs now, and that's from coaches all the way through. So my recommendation would be like having your board or your senior people in the club looking at those resources and going, okay, what is it that we can do to make sure that our players feel comfortable to come forward if they're not doing okay. And for us at Royals, I know that over the 5 or 6 years that we have run our charity day through Are You Okay, you know, it seems to be sort of each year someone has come forward and said, you know what, I'm not doing okay at the moment. And we've from that have been able to put supports around them, and whether that be getting players around them or putting them in touch with someone to speak to get them through that difficult time they're going through. And it doesn't necessarily have to be mental health. It could be a number of different things. It just could be struggling with money, or, you're struggling with uni and things like that, or you've broken up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend. So it's not just the mental health side of things. It's just making sure that, everyone goes through tough times for different reasons. And it's just making everyone aware that everyone goes through that, like making sure that people know that and they're not alone. So for me, it's a really, it's something that's really close to my heart, and something that I'm really conscious of. When we have new players coming to the club, I always try and make an effort to go and say hello to them if I haven't seen them before. Just introduce myself and just let them know, if you need anything, come see me, and I'll do what I can.
No, I love that. And it seems to be growing in a lot of sporting organizations, is making sure everyone has that resource available for them if they're not doing okay, or even if you are doing okay, if you still want to talk to someone, go do that. And the Aussie Rules Club that I'm with at the moment, Eastlake, we have a chaplain, and he's there for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're doing well, bad, or you're not happy with a team selection or just something. You can go talk to him, and he's got resources in place, and it's really cool to see. I haven't seen that before in a sporting organization. Have a chaplain like Dan, and I think he's been a massive help this year, and he's been with the club for a while now, but it's just really cool to see that players can go talk to him. He can be anonymous. He won't say anything. He just be a person just to listen. And I think some players also need to be heard when they don't get selected, or they're a bit confused around that stuff, because that can play on their mental health. And I've seen that quite a bit as well. Like, why aren't I getting selected? Why is that happening? And they just haven't had an outlet to speak to someone about it. So I think it's really awesome that Eastlake have it, but also what you've done for Royals with Are You Okay, and what they're continually doing with that. And yeah, I couldn't speak more highly of it, and definitely reach out to those resources that we have today. And just make sure you check in with your teammates and coaches and playing staff as well.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome initiative from Eastlake as well. Like, it's so good to have someone there, full time, that someone can speak to, about whatever it is. So yeah, that's awesome.
So, what was it like giving a TED talk? I was doing some research last night, and it popped up, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" And I watched it, and it was a really good video. So I'll make sure I put that in the show link as well. But what was it like, giving a TED talk?
Honestly, it was super nerve-wracking. I don't like public speaking, especially didn't at that stage. And I'd said no to it 3 times before they actually got me to do it. So I took some convincing to do it. But honestly, after I had done it, I was buzzing for about 3 days. So there was probably 200 to 300 students from a college in Sydney that I did it in front of, and their parents. And honestly, the conversations that I had after the talk, it just sort of made me go, like, this is the stuff I need to be talking about. Like, a lot of the stuff I spoke about within it was around sort of my journey through rugby and into work and what I do for work now. But the conversations I had with a lot of those students, there's a lot of year 11 and 12 students there. So they were sort of getting to a point where they had to make a decision on what they were going to do after school. And I think I spoke a lot about in there, sort of obviously I spoke at the start of this around, I was always going to play cricket. That was my dream. Like, I was going to play cricket for Australia, and then end of year 12, well, now I'm playing rugby. So, things change for different reasons, and for whatever reason in my head, that's the way that I went. But it was talking a lot about, there's obviously setbacks and things like that, and how we get past them, and, the people around you and what people will tell you and that sort of thing. So it was more just around like embracing whatever it is that happens. I'm a big believer of everything happens for a reason, good or bad, but it happens, and you just have to sort of, roll your sleeves up and keep moving forward. So, look, it was an awesome experience, and I got the opportunity to deliver it a couple more times in schools in Canberra when I came back, just through my work and a few teachers who sort of saw it. But I think for me, it was awesome that I could have the opportunity to speak to some of the youth and to potentially have an impact on their life or their mindset around different things. I think it's really powerful, and I feel really privileged to be able to be put in that position to give a talk like that.
Yeah, it really resonated me of, back then at school, I was just solely focused on rugby. I didn't want to do anything else, screw studying and all that. I just wanted to play rugby and I wanted to, be a rugby superstar as many people wanted to be. And, probably didn't accept change as well as I probably should have. And, watching this talk, it just makes you think, okay, yeah, you got to take the good and the bad. You don't know what's going to happen, but you just got to go with it. And even if it's the right way, awesome. If it's the wrong way, doesn't matter. The obstacle is going to be the way. Trying to avoid that obstacle isn't going to really help you. So I think it's a great thing that you did, and I'm glad you finally said yes to it and then delivered multiple talks. It's awesome.
No, thank you, thank you. It was yeah, no, it was a pretty special thing to be part of doing actually.
That's awesome. So moving on to the last sort of part of the podcast, my favorite part, the Triple H. So what is a hardship you can think of in your rugby career that sort of stands out, and how did you get through this hardship, and what did you learn?
I was trying to think about this, and in 2007, I was captaining the runners, and I was feeling pretty confident. I was playing some really good rugby, and I broke my ankle before the John I Dent season had started. So I think we're playing against Kubota or IBM from Japan. Um, anyway, I had to get screws put in my ankle. So this was the very start of the season. I was in a really good position, I think, in terms of the performances I was putting together, the form I was in, and sort of potentially moving towards that sort of more professional side of things. And I broke my ankle. And I just remember being really deflated because I feel like I'd had a really good preseason. I'd started to get a bit stronger. I was confident in how I was playing. I'd probably adjusted to, like we spoke about earlier, like being in the gym doing weights and things like that. But I'd also adjusted to moving to Canberra and playing to a pattern. Where I grew up playing, there was no pattern. Like it was just heads up footy, like way you go. And it took me probably a couple of years to sort of realize where I needed to be and how to read a game and that sort of thing. So I felt like I was in a really good position, and then I broke my ankle. And that year was the year that they had the first NRC. Might have been called something else. ARC, I think it was called, the first year in 2007. So that was at the back end of the John I Dent. So I didn't play a game of John I Dent rugby that year, and yeah, I was just really deflated. And last minute, I got a call from Scrib, who was the coach, and someone else had been injured, and they pulled me straight in. So I think I played 3 or 4 games. My first game maybe off the bench. One game I didn't even get on the field, and then the last game we played against Melbourne in Melbourne, and I think we lost, but it was probably the best performance that I had put on in terms of that comp. Playing against guys like Digby Iwani, who I didn't realize how powerful he was, and this was probably the first time I was like, gym makes a massive difference. And like I remember I went to tackle him and I felt like just ripped my shoulder out the back of the socket. Not because there was a massive run up. He was just so powerful. Like he hit and then just kept pumping through. So, but I reckon it took me a good 2 years to get over that ankle injury. I was just tentative for a good while, but I had that opportunity to play ARC off the back of breaking my ankle. And I think I sort of look at that now. And at the time I was like, why me? Why would my ankle break now? Like, why is this happening to me? But looking back, I was like, it gave me the opportunity to continue to work on my S&C. So I got a little bit stronger. I did put on a tiny little bit more weight. But it helped me off the field as well. So at the time I was doing my apprenticeship as a cabinet maker, and I was not enjoying it at all. But I got the opportunity to be full-time rugby in that space. And it kind of made up my mind. I was like, I don't want to do cabinet making anymore. I've sort of seen what it's like in this professional space. I really enjoy that. But I don't want to do that. So I did go back to cabinet making for a little bit, but eventually sort of, I guess, quit doing that and got into another side of things, doing some other building and things. But it gave me an opportunity to sort of see things of what I was doing outside of rugby and go, is that exactly what you want to do? So really disappointing that I broke my ankle in rugby and didn't get to play that whole season. But I was lucky enough then to still jump into the ARC, have that opportunity in that environment with those. Like our team was pretty much all Brumbies, and then there was a handful of club players. So again, feel really privileged to be in that position. But I think the injury itself helped me more outside of work. And I think in terms of that mental space of doing something outside of rugby that you enjoy doing, that's sort of probably where I realized it's really important what you're doing outside of work to make sure that you'll be able to perform on the field. Because I probably, for that year when I was doing my rehab and probably wasn't playing any rugby, it was really hard. I found it really hard just sort of going to work and not having that purpose of rugby, which was my sole focus when I moved down here. And all of a sudden my sole focus was work, which I didn't really enjoy. So I think it's really important to find something that you enjoy doing outside of rugby, particularly if it's your job. Like, you spend more time working than you do doing anything else. So if you can find something that you enjoy doing or don't mind going to, it makes a massive difference in life and your mental capacity, I guess.
Yeah, it's a strange game, rugby. You think you've mastered everything, and then boom, setback. But that setback, as you found it really helped you to really understand what's going on in your life and what you wanted to do outside of rugby. And maybe if you didn't have that ankle injury, well, you might have just continued on being a cabinet maker. But sometimes you just gotta just take it as it comes, and it's sort of probably a good thing that it did happen, and be able to focus on the other side of life and really set yourself up for what you're doing now.
Yeah, definitely.
So, hero, who is your hero, or if you have multiple heroes, and why are these people your hero?
Look, outside of my parents, that my parents have been unreal for me and my brothers growing up. So like, they're obviously my number one and two there, or my number ones really. Through rugby, I guess, there's two guys through Royals, I think, who really stand out for me as maybe not heroes, but guys who I really admire or look up to. They're sort of Tyson Temahiri and Craig McMahon. Tyson was captain in 2015 with us, and really good mate of mine, but just someone who's a genuine, down-to-earth bloke, but always on point with what he would say. His words were like, you would go into battle for him as soon as he spoke. Like, I just have a lot of respect for that guy and the way he played the game. He was a footballer. I know we have a lot of athletes that play rugby now, but he was a footballer. Like, he knew how to play the game and where to be, and he was just tough. Maka, on the other hand, he also very tough, the most competitive and most fiercely loyal bloke to Royals that I think I've ever met. And I just loved playing with him. He was someone who, again, I've become really good mates with, and to play with him, like, I got the opportunity to play fourth grade with him a few weeks ago, which was unreal. But on the field, he knew how to organize our team. And I think I really admired him for that in being a 10, but he was so competitive and would never back down, but would do anything for anyone on his team. If someone came in like a late shove, or someone on one of the guys who was debuting or was a rookie or young, he was straight there in the other bloke's face, just making sure that our young guy knew, like, I've got you, don't worry about it. So for me, he's one of the guys who I really looked up to. But I think in terms of that next level of player, like Andy Muirhead, I think the way he's gone about getting to where he is now is unreal. Probably didn't have the normal path that some kids sort of get out of school, where they're sort of straight into that system and, straight into the top squad or whatever. He's gone away and played a lot of sevens, played in New Zealand, moved down to Canberra, not even for anything, like for an opportunity, I guess. And that's when I met him playing at Royals. And I know he was training with the Brumbies, but he was working in between. So he'd literally go from work straight into training and then sometimes back to work. And I just think that, along with being one of the best blokes going round, his work ethic and his desire to make sure that he did everything possible for him to get where he wanted to get to, for me, is unbelievable. And as you were saying before, he's not the biggest guy, but when it comes to who you would pick in your team, he's one of the blokes who I absolutely love having on my team. And I know I shifted from fullback to wing when he moved down here, and it was honestly the best move I ever made, because I scored a bucket load of tries just jogging along beside him. He did all the work and then just gave me the ball and made me look very good. So, he's probably one of the guys in terms of who are at that top level who I sort of look up to and think, that's a good story of how someone's got there. It's not that usual, well, he was earmarked in high school and just sort of, here you go, here you go, here you go. He worked really hard. He went away, he worked at his game, he did a lot of things and then came back. He just sort of seems to be improving and getting bigger and better every year.
Yeah, 100%. He's definitely what Dan McKellar said a few episodes ago. He's like, Andy Muirhead's story is just incredible to where he is now. And if you're looking at one of the best informed wingers in Australian rugby the last sort of 2-3 years, and one of the most consistent as well, he pops straight up. And me and Ben have been talking about, it's like, man, he's just so unlucky not to have been a Wallaby already, and I really hope Eddie looks at him again and potentially picks him for the upcoming games and potentially World Cup, because what him, Corey, and Tom Wright are doing for the Brumbies is just so consistent and so deadly out there. Like, they're just like, you can't really explain it. You just got to watch it. And like, they've just been so good all year, and they've been doing it for so long as well. Not Corey, obviously, he's been coming up, but him and Tom Wright have just been developing so well. And you just feel really unlucky for Andy, but I know his time's going to come really soon, because he just keeps putting in the work, and he's such a great person and a great competitor as well.
Yeah, 100%. No, they're doing the back three are very good at the moment. I was out there on the weekend watching, and they're all very different, but they just sort of seem to work well together. So it's a pleasure to watch them go about their business.
100%. And last one, highlight. What is a highlight that stands out in your rugby career?
There's probably a few. I think captaining that Brumbies Tens team at the Mauritius, that was pretty special. Even to be asked, I guess, to go and do that, it was an awesome experience, and to play against some of the top level players in the world was pretty amazing. Obviously, the 2015 grand final was a special one for different reasons, but obviously as an individual highlight, it was pretty special to be able to score that try at the end and I guess end that drought of 24 years or so. And that was just to see the looks or the conversations that we had after that game with the old boys, and it was really special to me. It sort of holds a really special place in my heart. And then 2017 was probably I don't know, not that it was expected, but I think because we had such a good team on paper and we were playing so well throughout the season, for us to finish the season off undefeated and in the manner that we did, I was really proud of that. Just to be part of that team as a group, I thought they were a really great bunch of lads that were playing there, and just the way they went about their business was a pleasure to watch.
That's awesome.
It probably my highlights, I think.
That's cool. So if you can only give 1 or 2 points of advice for rugby athletes out there, what would you say?
I think support your teammates. Like I said earlier, you could be the best player in the world, but there's 14 other blokes you need on that field to let people see that. So without them, you're no good. So I think supporting your mates to be the best they can be, and making sure that you're doing everything you can to help them improve as players and as people. I've spoken about it a number of times, but I think the more we can become better people, the better our club's going to be, the better the team's going to be, and the better we're going to be as a group. So that would probably be my one bit of advice for everyone, is just to support one another, to build each other up.
Yeah, I love it. So who should be my next guest on the podcast? Is there any old current teammates or coaches that's just sure to jump on for a chat?
I reckon if you can get Wayne Southwell on for a chat, I reckon he'd have some pretty good insight around coaching. He's obviously been around Canberra for a long time, but he's been a pretty successful coach in the John I Dent. He would be one who would be worth having a chat. Craig McMahon also, I mean, he's got a bit of a different journey in terms of, he went to Sydney and then was over at Oxford Uni and then sort of back over here. But in terms of his rugby brain, he's outstanding. So there may be two that come to mind for me.
Awesome. I'll definitely reach out. So where can listeners find you on social media if they do want to, reach out or just follow what's going on in your life?
Yeah, it's just Ben Johnston on Facebook and Kajabi on Instagram, which is Cujabi.
Easy done.
Yeah.
I'll put that on the show notes along with the TED Talk as well. So thanks for joining me today, Ben. It's been awesome to get to understand a bit more about you in terms of your long rugby career and understand what makes a good teammate on and off the field and all the support stuff that you've put in place for Royals and all the rugby knowledge that you've shared with me today. It's been awesome and I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to come on and have a chat. That's been awesome.
Thanks for tuning into another episode of Elite Rugby S&C podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and rate Elite Rugby S&C on Spotify and YouTube, and make sure you follow us on Instagram. Sign up to become a beast via the link in the description or via Instagram page. Also, don't wait, make that good decision and join Elite Rugby S&C today and take your game to the next level.